What if I told you Abraham had a secret wife after Sarah died? A woman so powerful that her children became fathers of entire nations, yet her name was deliberately hidden from Sunday school lessons. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is scripture. And what you're about to discover will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about Abraham, the father of faith. Her name appears only twice in the entire Bible. Just 2 mentions. Yet from her womb came 6 sons who founded kingdoms that still shape Middle Eastern politics today. Scholars have debated her identity for centuries. Some say she was Abraham's greatest love. Others claim she was the key to unlocking prophecies about the end times. But here's what nobody's telling you. This forgotten marriage holds secrets that connect ancient biblical prophecy to modern world events in ways that will leave you absolutely stunned. I'm about to reveal who Keturah really was, why her story was buried, and the shocking connection between her descendants and people alive right now. But I warn you, once you see this, you'll never read Genesis the same way again. This is the explosive truth about Keturah, Abraham's secret wife that religious institutions don't want you investigating. Stay with me until the end, because the final revelation about her legacy will blow your mind. Picture this scene. Sarah, Abraham's beloved companion for over a century, has just passed away. The patriarch is 137 years old. Everyone assumes his story is winding down. The promise has been fulfilled through Isaac. The covenant is secure. Abraham's chapter should be closing. But then something unexpected happens that shatters every assumption. The elderly patriarch does something that shocks his entire household. He takes another wife. Not a concubine. Not a servant. A wife. And from this union, everything changes. Most people breeze right past Genesis 25 verse 1 without a second thought. Abraham took another wife, and her name was Keturah. Just one simple sentence. But packed into those few words is a mystery that has puzzled theologians, fascinated historians, and revealed prophetic dimensions that most Christians have never even considered. This wasn't just an old man seeking companionship in his final years. This was the divine orchestrating the fulfillment of a promise so massive that one woman, even the legendary Sarah, couldn't complete it alone. The mystery of Keturah begins with her name. In Hebrew, Keturah means incense or fragrance. Why would this matter? Because in ancient Hebrew culture, names weren't just labels, they were prophecies. They declared destinies. And Keturah's name revealed exactly what she would become, a sweet fragrance rising to heaven, carrying the prayers and purposes of nations yet unborn. Some rabbinical scholars suggest something even more controversial. They claim Keturah was actually Hagar under a new name, returning to Abraham after Sarah's death. Others insist she was a completely different woman from the eastern tribes, perhaps even royalty. But here's what we know for certain. Whoever she was, the Almighty chose her for a purpose so specific, so strategic, that her 6 sons would spread across the ancient world, creating alliances, conflicts, and prophetic fulfillments that continue to this day. When Abraham married Keturah, he wasn't just finding a companion. He was unknowingly stepping into the next phase of the divine's master plan. A plan so intricate that it would take thousands of years to fully unfold. Are you ready for this? Because what happened next changed the entire landscape of the Middle East. Let's address the elephant in the room. If you grew up in church, you probably learned about Abraham and Sarah. You might even know about Hagar and Ishmael. But Keturah? Most pastors skip right over her. Why? Is it uncomfortable to talk about the patriarch taking another wife at such an advanced age? Is it because her story complicates the neat narrative of Isaac being the sole heir? Or is there something deeper, something about Keturah's descendants that religious institutions would rather not examine too closely? Here's the truth they don't teach in Sunday school. Abraham didn't have just 2 significant relationships. He had 3. Sarah, the wife of promise, who waited decades for the miraculous son. Hagar, the servant who bore Ishmael and whose descendants became a great nation. And Keturah, the wife of multiplication, whose purpose was to demonstrate that the Almighty's promises are always bigger, always more expansive, always more abundant than we initially comprehend. Each woman represented a different facet of the divine's faithfulness. Sarah showed that the Creator keeps promises even when circumstances seem impossible. Hagar demonstrated that divine mercy extends even to our mistakes and detours. But Keturah? She revealed something most people miss entirely. She proved that when you think the story is over, when you assume the blessings have been fully distributed, when you believe the final chapter has been written, the Almighty is just getting started with new dimensions you never imagined. Think about the audacity of this moment. Abraham is over 130 years old. By every human calculation, his productive years are long behind him. Sarah has died. Isaac is established. The covenant seems complete. And then the Creator says, "Not so fast. I promised you'd be the father of many nations. Not just one nation through Isaac. Not just one nation through Ishmael. Many nations. And we're not finished yet." This is where Keturah enters the narrative. And everything explodes into multiplication. Now here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Keturah didn't give Abraham just one son as a comfort in his old age. She gave him 6. Count them, 6 sons. Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. 6 sons who became patriarchs of 6 distinct peoples. The descendants of Keturah and Abraham created a legacy that spread throughout the eastern regions like wildfire. But who were these nations? And where are they today? Before I reveal that, let me ask you this. If you're discovering biblical mysteries you've never heard before, do me a favor, like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because what I'm about to show you about Keturah's descendants will connect ancient prophecy to current events in ways that will absolutely stun you. The sons of Keturah became fathers of nations that shaped the ancient world and continue influencing global events today. Let me break this down for you. Midian, the 4th son, established the Midianites, a powerful trading nation controlling crucial routes between Africa and Asia. These weren't minor desert tribes. They were economic powerhouses, political players, and yes, they appear throughout scripture in pivotal moments. Remember Joseph being sold into slavery? It was Midianite traders who bought him from his brothers and transported him to Egypt, unknowingly participating in the salvation plan that would preserve Israel during famine. Remember Moses fleeing Egypt after killing the Egyptian? He ended up in Midian, where he married Zipporah, daughter of Jethro the Midianite priest. And here's the connection that should make your jaw drop. Jethro was a direct descendant of Keturah. That means Moses' father-in-law, the man who gave him counsel about leading Israel, the priest who blessed the Almighty's name, he came from Abraham's forgotten wife. The woman nobody talks about had descendants who sheltered and mentored the greatest prophet of Israel. But it doesn't stop there. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan, nations that settled in Arabia and became wealthy trading kingdoms. Ishbak's descendants spread throughout the Syrian regions. Shua's lineage connected to the area where Job lived. Yes, that Job. And Zimran's descendants settled in southern Arabia, establishing tribes that exist to this day. Keturah's children didn't fade into obscurity. They became nations, kingdoms, peoples whose genealogies stretch across the Middle East, North Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula. They're still there, still influential, still part of the prophetic landscape. Now here's where it gets controversial. Many biblical scholars and historians identify Keturah's descendants as direct ancestors of numerous Arab tribes. This means that when we see conflicts and alliances in the Middle East today, we're often witnessing family dynamics that trace back thousands of years to this one forgotten woman. Brothers who separated millennia ago, carrying blessings and birthrights, still locked in the same tensions their forefathers navigated. Think about that. The geopolitical landscape of the entire Middle East, the alliances, the conflicts, the prophecies about end times, much of it traces back to family lines that originated with Abraham's 3 marriages. But here's the part that should shake you to your core. Genesis 25 verse 6 reveals something most people completely miss. But to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave gifts and sent them away from his son Isaac while he was still alive to the land of the east. Abraham sent Keturah's sons eastward with gifts and blessings, but separated them from Isaac's inheritance. This wasn't rejection. This was divine organization. Each bloodline had its specific purpose, its designated territory, its prophetic role. Isaac would carry the covenant promise leading to Messiah. Ishmael would become a great nation. And Keturah's sons would establish kingdoms throughout the east, fulfilling the many nations promise in ways nobody expected. This is where your mind should be exploding. The promise that Abraham would be father of many nations wasn't just poetic exaggeration. It was literal, mathematical, strategic. Through Sarah, Isaac, then Jacob, then the 12 tribes of Israel, then ultimately Jesus. Through Hagar, Ishmael and 12 princes becoming a great nation. Through Keturah, 6 sons becoming multiple eastern nations. Add it all up. How many distinct peoples, nations, and kingdoms emerged from Abraham's descendants? More than most Christians ever realized. Far more than Sunday school ever taught you. And here's the prophetic bombshell. Scripture mentions Keturah's descendants in end-time prophecies. The prophet Habakkuk references Midian in prophetic contexts. The Psalms speak of Eastern peoples in ways scholars connect to Keturah's lineage. Isaiah mentions nations that many theologians trace back to her sons. This forgotten woman's children appear and prophesies about events still unfolding today. But why was her story so thoroughly buried? Why do most Christians know nothing about this crucial piece of Abraham's legacy? I'll tell you why. Because acknowledging Keturah means acknowledging that the divine's purposes are vastly more complex, more inclusive, and more expansive than the simplified narratives we prefer. It means recognizing that the many nations promise includes peoples and kingdoms beyond the traditional scope of Israel. It means understanding that family lines we see in conflict today are actually related through this ancient patriarch. It means wrestling with the uncomfortable reality that the divine's plan involves everyone, not just the lineages we focus on, but also the forgotten branches, the overlooked wives, the sent-away sons who still carried blessings into distant lands. The mystery of Keturah forces us to expand our understanding of how the Almighty works. And for many religious institutions, that expansion is threatening. So they skip over her, minimize her, reduce her to a footnote. But she was never a footnote in the divine's book. She was a chapter, a crucial one. Let's talk about the elephant that's probably in your mind right now. How could Abraham, at over 130 years old, marry again and father 6 more sons? The biology seems impossible. But remember, this is the same man whose body was as good as dead when he fathered Isaac at 100 years old. The same man whose wife Sarah, at 90, conceived miraculously. The Creator who renewed Abraham's strength to father the child of promise didn't suddenly lose that power after Sarah died. The supernatural renewal continued. And through Keturah, the multiplication of nations continued. This teaches us something revolutionary about how the Almighty operates. While we're focused on the main storyline, divine purposes are unfolding in multiple directions simultaneously. While we're celebrating Isaac, the Creator is preparing Ishmael. While we're establishing the covenant through one son, 6 other sons are being sent out to establish kingdoms that will play crucial roles in prophetic history. The tapestry is far more intricate than we imagined. And Keturah's threads are woven throughout it, connecting peoples, prophecies, and purposes in ways that only become clear when you step back and see the whole picture. Now I'm going to tell you something that might offend some people, but it's truth. Keturah's story was deliberately minimized because it complicates easy theology. It's easier to preach about one wife, one son, one covenant, one nation. It's cleaner, more controllable, less messy. But biblical truth is rarely clean. It's gloriously messy, full of multiple wives, complex families, unexpected blessings, and purposes that unfold over millennia in ways we never anticipated. Keturah represents that beautiful complexity. She's proof that the divine's promises always exceed our initial understanding, always multiply beyond our expectations, always include people and purposes we overlooked. Let me show you something that will connect all of this to your life right now. Keturah's legacy teaches 3 transformative principles that apply directly to you today, regardless of where you are in your journey. First, the Creator is never finished with your life. Abraham married Keturah at an age when most people would consider themselves done, finished, past their productive years. But the Almighty opened an entirely new chapter that would impact nations for thousands of years. If you feel like certain opportunities have passed, like certain doors have closed, like your most fruitful seasons are behind you, Keturah's story declares otherwise. New chapters, unexpected blessings, and unprecedented multiplication can begin at any age. Second, your seemingly small contributions can generate massive generational impact. Keturah raised 6 sons. She probably never knew they would become fathers of nations. She couldn't have imagined her descendants would appear in end-time prophecies. She simply lived faithfully, raised her children purposefully, and trusted the Almighty with the outcomes. You're planting seeds right now, in your children, your work, your relationships, your service, that may grow into spiritual nations you'll never see in your lifetime. The full impact of your faithful obedience might not be revealed for generations, but it's building something eternal. Third, divine promises always have dimensions beyond what you initially understood. When the Almighty promised Abraham would be father of many nations, Abraham probably thought primarily about Isaac. But the promise exploded through Ishmael, multiplied through Keturah, and continues expanding today. The promises made over your life, the words spoken, the prophecies given, the purposes planted, they're probably bigger than your current understanding. They likely include dimensions, relationships, and impacts you haven't yet imagined. Don't limit the Creator to your expectations. The plan is always more expansive. Here's where everything comes together in a way that should absolutely wreck you. Keturah joins a remarkable company of forgotten biblical women who played essential roles but remain largely unknown. Women like Zipporah, Moses' Midianite wife, yes, descended from Keturah, who saved Moses' life by circumcising their son. Women like the daughters of Zelophehad who changed inheritance laws for all future generations. Women like Axa who demanded springs of water and transformed barren land into prosperity. These forgotten heroines teach us something fundamental about the divine's heart. The Creator uses ordinary people in seemingly secondary roles to fulfill extraordinary purposes. Keturah never had a biblical book named after her. She's never listed among the heroes of faith. No prophet spoke directly about her significance. But her contribution to the divine plan was monumental. She mothered 6 nations. Her descendants sheltered Moses. Her lineage appears in end-time prophecies. Her story demonstrates that importance isn't measured by spotlight or recognition, but by eternal impact. How many Keturahs exist today? Women raising children who will influence generations. Men planting seeds of faith without fanfare. People faithfully serving in obscurity while the Creator builds something massive through them. The mysteries hidden in Scripture about these forgotten figures reveal something beautiful about the divine character. Every life matters. Every faithful obedience counts. Every obscure role in the grand story carries eternal weight. The Creator sees, remembers, and honors every person who surrenders to divine purposes, even when the world doesn't notice. Especially when the world doesn't notice. Because kingdom impact isn't about visibility. It's about faithfulness. And Keturah was faithful. Which is why her story, though buried by human historians, is permanently recorded in the eternal Word. Now we've arrived at the moment I promised at the beginning. The revelation that connects Keturah's ancient story to your life right now in ways you never expected. Here's the stunning truth. Keturah's legacy isn't just historical. It's prophetic. It's personal. It's happening right now in your life, whether you recognize it or not. In a world obsessed with main characters, lead roles, and center stage, the Almighty continues operating through ordinary people in seemingly secondary positions to accomplish extraordinary purposes. Keturah's story is your story. You're the overlooked relationship that's actually crucial. You're the forgotten chapter that's actually pivotal. You're the minor role that's actually essential. Every Keturah principle applies directly to you. Right now, the Creator might be preparing new chapters you think are impossible because of your age, your circumstances, or your season. Right now, you're sowing seeds that will grow into generational harvests you cannot yet imagine. Right now, the promises spoken over your life contain dimensions you haven't begun to explore. The divine is never finished. Your influence isn't exhausted. Your purpose isn't complete. And here's what should absolutely shatter every limitation you've accepted. If the Almighty could use a forgotten wife, married to a man over 130 years old, to birth 6 nations that shaped Middle Eastern prophecy thousands of years later, what could the Creator do through your surrendered, faithful, ordinary life? What nations might emerge from the children you're raising? What movements might spring from the seeds you're planting? What prophetic fulfillments might trace back to your obedient yes? You'll probably never know the full impact. Keturah didn't know. Abraham didn't know. But the divine economy wastes nothing. Every act of faith, every moment of obedience, every seed planted in obscurity, they are all producing eternal fruit that will be revealed when the full tapestry is finally displayed. So let me ask you directly, what Keturahs exist in your life right now? What people seem to have minor roles but might be divinely positioned for purposes you don't understand? What relationships appear ordinary but could be generating generational impact? What opportunities seem to have passed but the Creator might renew unexpectedly? The great lesson of this forgotten story is simple but revolutionary. Never underestimate what the Almighty can do through a life surrendered to divine purposes, even when that life isn't spotlighted, celebrated, or recognized. Keturah never knew she was fulfilling one of history's greatest promises. She simply lived faithfully with Abraham, raised her sons purposefully, and trusted the divine with outcomes. That's all the Creator asks of you. Faithful presence. Purposeful obedience. Trust with the results. What legacy are you building today? What seeds are you planting that might blossom into spiritual nations in the future? If this story has ignited something in your spirit, leave a comment telling me your biggest discovery about Keturah. Share this video with someone who needs to know the Creator still has extraordinary chapters prepared for their life. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to discover more biblical mysteries that will transform your understanding of divine purposes. Because here's what I want you to carry with you. In the divine's economy, there are no small lives. Only limited perspectives. No minor roles. Only incomplete vision. No forgotten people. Only those whose full impact hasn't yet been revealed. Keturah's story invites you to live each day knowing you're participating in purposes far greater than you can currently see. Your life, like hers, is incense rising to heaven. Fragrance that pleases the divine. Seed that will bear fruit for generations yet to come. So live with that awareness. Serve with that confidence. Trust with that expectation. May your life, like Keturah's, become a sweet fragrance ascending to the throne, carrying eternal impact for nations yet unborn. Until the next revelation, may the blessing of the Almighty, who kept promises to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and yes, even Keturah, rest upon your life and your descendants forever.